Yes, with full confidence, I can say that James Gunn's Superman is one of my favorite superhero movies. Now, I just got out of my second viewing of it, and is it a perfect movie without flaws? By all means, no. There's obviously some issues that I'd like to go over in the spoiler section of this video. But if I can compare it to any other superhero movie, I think the best comparisons would have to be the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, mainly because of how sincere it is and what it's trying to be. It's not a dark deconstruction of the material or an adaptation that's poking fun of the source material. It's just a genuine attempt at telling a good Superman story. Now, first off, I want to get the big elephant out of the room when it comes to the controversies surrounding this movie. Zack Snyder fans. It's probably best to ignore whatever they're saying this time because unfortunately I've been on that side of the internet long enough to see some things that I regret seeing.
Soberana mierda. Mira qué basura. Es que es feo, ¿eh? Feo.
Tell me why I wanna hear reporter say.
Ladies and gentlemen, hashtag Henry Cavill Superman!
Another glaring topic is how apparently this movie is now a talking political point amongst far-right viewers. I kind of saw this coming, but at the same time, all I have to say is that, of course, a movie about basic human decency and not using your powers to impose on other people is, well, a problem to far-right extremists. Getting into the visuals, a lot of people were worried that this movie was going to look like the Flash movie since it has the same cinematographer and that the movie would have this blue tint to it. And, well, I personally would have liked the tint, but I'm glad that it got desaturated just a little bit. And in terms of the cinematography, I can safely say it's a lot more like the Aquaman movies than the Flash, and I like those two movies, even though 2 has its own fair share of problems. So overall, I wouldn't mind if any future Superman movies continue to look like this, let alone any future DCU movie. The performances in this movie were top-notch. When I see David Cornstalk as Superman, I see him as Superman. Now, more leaning on towards the more modern takes on Superman, like New 52, since he's definitely a lot more hot-headed and not as humble as he is in past iterations, but given the story, I appreciate it for what it is. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is everything I wanted from a modern take on Lex Luthor. He comes off as really pretentious and bratty, and it works so well with what he does in the story. Rachel Brosnan plays a great Lois Lane, probably my favorite iteration of the character to come out of a movie to this date, because we haven't seen a Lois Lane that goes this deep into the journalistic side of the character in a very long time. As for the further supporting cast in this movie, I thought the Justice Gang was great. I was honestly afraid that it would take up too much of the screen time and the movie would have a hard time juggling and balancing all these characters. But wow, Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern was spectacular. Best casting choice for that character, surprisingly. As for Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl, I do like Mr. Terrific a lot, but I do wish Hawkgirl got a little bit more screen time than she did in the movie. But man, like when they appear on camera, you get the general gist of who they are and their motivations. Going briefly into the costumes in this movie, I do love the way Superman's suit looks in this movie, the bright colors, the trunks on the outside. However, I do wish that all the lines and panels did serve a purpose, kind of like how it did in the New 52, where that suit had all those lines and panels because it was Kryptonian armor and, well, it glowed, which would have been cool to see in this movie. As for the Justice Gang, I liked them. Mr. Terrific has the best look ever because it's pulled straight from the comics. Guy Gardner, I wish he would zip up his jacket and, I'd appreciate that suit more. Hawkgirl, she never really came off as a character that needed a jacket in the first place, but it looks alright. Metamorpho. Wow. Now, when it was initially announced that Metamorpho was going to be in this movie, I originally thought he was going to be 100% CGI, kind of like the Thing in the more modern Fantastic Four movies. I was so wrong, and Metamorpho's character design is straight up the best one in the whole movie. Now, if I could go over the plot of this movie without spoiling anything yet, this movie is about Clark in his third year as Superman, where Lois Lane already knows who he is, and he's formed connections with other metahumans, primarily the Justice Gang, which their name is a funny recurring joke in the movie, and Crypto's in it as well. And For a dog that's supposed to be 100% CGI, it is pretty convincing most of the time. Like, whenever it's not a fight scene, that dog looks real. However, Superman learns of a major revelation that leads to him questioning his own purpose and existence on Earth, while Lex Luthor is scheming something behind the scenes. So, similar to Matt Reeves' The Batman, while the movie doesn't especially show the origin story happen, the plot is heavily driven by the ramifications and importance of the character's origin, which is great. Alright, spoiler warning for those who are watching and listening as I get into my critiques of this movie. Now, a big concern a lot of people had for this movie when the first trailer came out was the scenes that took place in the Middle East and Superman seemingly being a white savior figure. I honestly think the movie handled it pretty well, surprisingly, since the start of the movie questions if Superman should interfere with foreign affairs and human conflicts. For what the conflict is in the fictional Middle East, it's a critique on Israel. I am not kidding. Matter of fact, the invading country is a close ally to the US that receives its weapons from the US, specifically Lex Luthor. And wow, the president of that country is a parody of a certain prime minister who's been saying that Iran's building weapons of mass destruction for a long time. Yeah, this is actually amazing. However, I feel like at this point, to be more culturally relevant, the movie might as well call the countries Israel and Palestine. I say this mainly because we're living in a post-Kamen Rider Black Sun world, and for those who don't know, Kamen Rider Black Sun is a show on Amazon Prime that's a dark reimagining of the original Kamen Rider Black, but with more socially relevant themes. Basically think the mutant metaphor from X-Men, but definitely more on the nose for good reasons. One of the show's antagonists is a clear parody of Shinzo Abe, and spoiler alert for those who haven't seen the show, he dies horrifically by the last episode. And the thing is, this show aired the same year he died. Yeah. Now, another issue I had with this movie was Jor-El. In this new iteration of Superman, when he crash landed on Earth, he had a message from his two birth parents in Krypton. He used the message as what basically motivated him to be Superman. However, half of the message was corrupted. It's not until later on in the movie where it gets uncorrupted and Superman realizes that he was sent to Earth to conquer it. I am actually okay with this change. However, I still wish it was more on the ambiguous side of things, like maybe perhaps there wasn't a definitive answer on whether or not the rest of the message was true or misinterpreted. However, I could actually overlook this issue a bit since we're given really great scenes between Clark and Jonathan Kent. A more minor issue that I have is with the reveal of Ultraman turning out to be a Superman clone. I wish that he'd say Bizarro #1 or something along those lines, but that's just me being a comic book nerd. Overall, my final ranking for James Gunn's Superman is a solid 8 out of 10. It is, without a doubt, the best modern iteration of Superman to this day. I highly recommend that you watch it while it's still in theaters. Now, the big question is, how does it fare against Matt Reeves' The Batman? I'll let you decide that in the comments. Thanks for watching.